Okay. Hello. I'm Jennifer Rosebrock, and I'm with Hick Christian. I'm here with David Rice, founder of Hick Christian. And this morning we have the opportunity to speak with Mike Moon, the fabulous and the constitutional. So,
I made that up. That was funny. I didn't think you could put that in. Okay.
all right. So, so Mike, before we even go into this, I'm just kind of curious. Can you just tell people a little bit about like your background and what you did before you got into politics as a state senator?
Well, sure. Let's go back to the beginning. It was a dark and stormy night. Not really, because I don't know. But I was born in North Carolina about 7 years after Dale Earnhardt in the city of Kannapolis. And most of you guys know who Dale Earnhardt was from NASCAR days.
Mhm.
And after my first grade year in North Carolina, my family moved to Virginia. And there I spent and finished high school. Then came out to Missouri to go to college. Graduated after attending a couple of years of Baptist Bible College. I finished at SMS, now MSU, and met my wife Denise. We've been married 44 years in August, and we have 5 children, 6 grandchildren,
Wow.
and I have a frog in my throat. Excuse me. And so we've been living out in Missouri now for about 46 years. We raise cattle on a farm in Ash Grove. And then I worked about 28 years after college at a hospital in Springfield. And I think it was the first wave of downsizing, also known as firing. The administrators came to me and told me that that I was no longer in their plan, and I knew something was happening, just didn't know what. Any case, the next night was really interesting because for a couple of months, the county had been without a representative in the state house, and so some county officials came to me and told me they'd like for me to run in the special election. Because I'd run a couple times before, and they thought I had name recognition and probably could get elected. I turned them down because after losing in another election, I decided just to be an activist and not a candidate. And so, a couple of weeks later, they came back to me and said, "Hey, we really would like for you to consider running." So I told them that I'd talk to my family and would pray about it and see what the Lord's will might be. And my oldest daughter, Amanda, said, "Dad, maybe you ran the first couple of times just to get your name out there. And now this is an opportunity for you to go out and win the race." And so because of her encouragement and others, we decided we'd go ahead and vie for that opportunity. And so the night after I was terminated from the hospital, I was nominated to be a candidate in the special election. And so I eventually won that. And after serving about 8 years in the House, I was elected to the Senate, and I'm now nearing the end of my first 4-year term. And so I can be elected one more time, and that election date is August 8th.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, coming up fast.
I'm sorry, did I say August 8th? I meant August 6th.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Yeah.
too bad we can't edit that because, yeah, but anyway, it is August 6th this year.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. It does sound like, I don't know. God has a way, right? And things just seem to he's got his timing on things. Um,
It sure does.
I'm gonna ask you kind of a direct question because I've heard people say that you can be difficult to work with and that you are too principled. So what's your response to that?
Oh, goodness. I was just talking to someone yesterday, a business owner. We were talking about politics because that seems to always come up when I'm in conversation with folks. And And I told them that I really genuinely like people. And I think I get along with people fairly well. But when it comes to things like political endeavors and issues, there is a dividing line. There's right and wrong. And often there's no in between. And because liberty and freedom is essential to our existence here in America and in Missouri and even in our individual counties, we can't compromise. I mean, it's either you have liberty or you don't. And so when I got elected, I realized that there are folks, even Republicans, who are out there for perhaps their own existence. They want to perpetuate their time in office and even afterward by appointment or whatever. And I've had people tell me behind closed doors that, Mike, you're right, but I've got to do this to get my bill passed, or I want to be on this committee, whatever it might be. And I think that's wrong, because I've taken the stance that if I'm elected again, great. But if I'm not, that's okay too. But I'm not going to lay down on something that I know is right and do the opposite. And so, difficult to work with? Yeah, I guess that people could interpret my position as being difficult. But what do you suppose the Sons of Liberty were up against when they went on to the ship in the Boston Harbor and said, we're tired of the king imposing his tyrannical will upon us. We're not going to pay this tax on the tea. So what they do? They dumped it in the Boston Harbor. And that was not the only thing that happened that led up to the Revolutionary War. But we're kind of in the same position now, because we have governments, not just the state and national government, but local governments who are imposing their tyrannical will upon us, and we're often complicit with it. And one of the positions that I've taken, I've learned from the Declaration of Independence, when it says that governments are instituted among men and deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And that's the second paragraph, if I recall correctly, from the Declaration. And what I found is that oftentimes leaders, and I put those in air quotes here, leaders will make decisions, like, for example, during the COVID pandemic, or plandemic, as we like to call it, telling people they could keep their business doors open because it might spread some unknown, unseen, ubiquitous disease. And so we complied, and by not pressing against it, we consented to their demands. And we've got to stop that stuff. If we continue to be, well, you know what, let those who are elected take care of it. We're going to just enjoy ourselves, have our barbecues, watch TV when we want to, go out to eat as often as we want, and forget that each individual is responsible for retaining and protecting the liberty that we have. We're going to fail. And that's where we are today. Too few people are involved in government and paying attention to what their elected officials are doing. And you can see the results of it. It's not good. So back to your original question, Jennifer, I'm sorry that I went on a tirade there. If by standing for what's right and for retaining and restoring our liberties that have been taken from us, if that's difficult, yeah, I'll accept that moniker, and I'll wear it with pride.
Okay. All right. Well, what are some things that you're most proud of from your first term as a senator?
Well, it happened last year. Senate Bill 49, otherwise known as the SAFE Act, which stands for Save Adolescents from Experimentation. Across the country and even in our own state, we had minor children who were being subjected to cruelty by the medical community and by some parents who believed that it was okay for their children to be transitioned from a male to a female or female to male. And, you know, that's kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, because you can't become a man if you're a woman, and you can't become a woman if you're a man. God created man and male and female, and you can't change that. And so we had kids who were being given drugs. One drug in particular called Lupron. That's a drug that's given to male sex offenders to castrate them chemically. And here we are giving them to kids to alter their blood chemistry, and it just makes no sense. And then you had some kids. I remember reading about one 18-year-old. Now she was of age where she could make this decision herself, but this was a Missouri girl who, when 18, became pregnant.
Oh.
And knew that because she had had her breast removed, that she wouldn't be able to breastfeed her child. She wanted her breast back, and that's been published in other articles. And I believe that was a Washington University case. And it's like, why are we funding this stuff? It just doesn't make sense. Now here's something I need to add on, because it's a pretty good segue. Because of my stance against Washington University, they train doctors to perform abortions. And it's not just the abortion training, because a lot of OBGYNs receive similar training, so that if they have to do a D&C, and those things are common after a miscarriage, they were training these doctors to procure organs so that they could be used for experimentation. That's not what we are supposed to be doing on embryos that have been either killed by abortion or that have died as a result of a miscarriage. We shouldn't be training doctors to do that. And so because of my stance against them, they don't like me one bit. And about 3 years ago, they started a PAC. It's called Right Path PAC. You can look, folks, if you're listening, you can look up under the Missouri Ethics Commission website, and you can find out who has been given money and received money by the Right Path PAC, a liberal organization who does not want me to be in office. And you have to question, why would you take money from that PAC, knowing full well their stance against life? And so this group started the PAC, and in short order, they raised over $2 million for the express purpose initially to unelect me. And so they've also got some others in their target crosshairs now, but that was done to get me out of office. Now, they looked for about 3 years to find an opponent for me. They found one.
Yeah.
And this individual lives in Christian County in the town of Ozark. And I don't know if this individual knows exactly why she's running. But in any case, she is running nonetheless. And I hope that we can defeat her. It's going to take a lot of work. But the bottom line I wanted to tell you was that because of Washington University and my position against them, they're doing all they can to get me out of office. So again, I went on another tirade. Sorry, Jennifer. You know how politicians are. You get us talking, you can't shut us up. But the SAFE Act, I think, is probably one of the pinnacles, because this bill is the only bill of its kind to win the test against the courts. It has been tried, and thanks to Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey and the team that he put together, it has withstood the test of the courts, and I think it's going to live a long time in helping to prevent the abuse and misuse of children's bodies.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Do you mind? So on the ballot initiative that's going forward, which would provide, it's, what is it, reproductive care is what they're calling it, but it would allow for trans surgeries for minors. Would that undo the SAFE Act?
Well, if that word is interpreted, or the language is interpreted that way, and it very well could be, you would be absolutely right. Of course, these will be tested in court, and it's a shame, David, that this could happen. But yeah, I think there is a distinct possibility that could be the result.
Okay, sorry, I just had that thought.
No, that's a good thought, and it's appropriate.
And and with the IP reform that didn't happen this session,
Oh.
Do you see anything in the future? Do you see a special session being called or any possibility of reconciling that? And then what's the downfall once if we're not able to get some?
Because I don't believe our current governor is interested in seeing that pushed, even though he said he was near the end of the session, he said he was for it. Where was he during the session when we had ample opportunity to get it done? So I don't see a special session being called. But yet, here's what I've surmised over the last few months about this. I was favorable of initiative petition reform, specifically with ratifying the way that initiatives are passed. But in any case, some people looked at that as a silver bullet. Like if we pass initiative petition reform, everything's done. We won't have to push for anybody to get out to the polls and vote. And I think that was wrong thinking. I could be wrong in that, but here I believe it's true because so many people were thinking that was the kind of the saving moment if we had it passed. But as you might recall, and those listeners also might remember, that we have a pretty poor showing at the polls. And unless we get people energized and educated on what the problem is and engaged in solving the problem and actually executing by getting out to the polls and vote against this initiative if it's actually on the ballot, we could very well lose again. And so in a way, it might be a blessing in disguise that initiative petition reform did not pass this year. So we've got our work cut out for us. We need to ensure that everybody we talk to, especially as we get close to election time, this will probably be in November, that we get our churches involved, that we get everybody who's registered to vote to realize that the implications of this initiative, if it passes, is killing, and I'm talking about murdering a developing human baby up to the time of birth. And David, as you pointed out, that it could undermine the protecting of minor children from having their bodies mutilated and destroyed chemically as a result of wanting to change who they are to male or female or vice versa.
And harvesting organs of fetuses or babies. I'm sorry, I shouldn't use the word fetus, but babies. That's not, that industry is terrible. And that would be constitutionally protected.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you're right.
Yeah, that is to me the biggest thing with IP reform is that it's just kind of this open gateway that says any left-leaning legislation you want to bring in, and if you can't pass it, you know, through the legislature, then we'll just go ahead and you can just do a ballot initiative. We'll get it right into the Constitution, and it'll stay there indefinitely.
Yeah,
And that's the thing that disturbs me.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. I'm just thinking that this may be, at least at this moment in time, may be a blessing in disguise in that we know that we've got more work to do. Because if we had to pass this, I honestly believe that most people thought that because we had passed an initiative petition that would change the way that these laws are ratified, that all the work was done. And that's not true. So even though it's going to take a lot of work, a huge effort to get people engaged, I think it's going to be worth it. And if we don't, I cannot even imagine what the consequences may be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and Missouri is such it's a strongly red state, but we still have to contend with St. Louis and Kansas City and Columbia. And they, you know, if we're just, yeah, IP, you know, with the hope that it could have balanced that out where, you know, the rural areas would have a little more say on ballot initiatives. So
yeah, I think we can still re-energize that effort, and so I'm hopeful that we can. I'll continue to file resolutions that will lead to that end. But for now, we have a different fight, and again, it's going to be a big one.
yeah, and conservatives are good when they are good at rallying. So when needed.
Yes.
Yeah.
David, did you have any questions?
I did have one question. So when SB 727 passed, and it went through all the processes, I know that you had some concerns about it. Could you list why you felt like it wasn't an appropriate bill to be passed?
Sure. First of all, I need to make the point that I am for school choice.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that parents should have the ability to fund their child's education in whatever manner they wish. And
Mm-hmm.
because they're paying taxes that fund the schools, they should be able to use that money for their own education. In fact, my wife and I educated our children for 27 years at home. And we spent a lot of money on taxes and spent a lot of money in addition to that buying curriculum and funding other parts of their education by ourselves.
Yeah.
Didn't get to use any of the tax money that we submitted, and we did that willingly. And we understood that if we wanted to educate our children by ourselves, then we'd have to fund that. And we gladly did it. I wouldn't change a thing. And so in that regard, I think that we should have the freedom. It's the parents' responsibility to teach their kids. But with this particular bill, 727, fundamentally, it talked about school choice,
Mm-hmm.
but yet when you will take these funds back from the government that you have paid into taxes, I believe at some point down the road, they're going to dictate what you teach in your school. I think that's wrong. One of the other reasons that I voted against it is because it violated the Constitution. Now, people say, well, wait a minute, this is all about education. Well, in a way, but the Constitution is pretty clear in Article 3, Sections 21 and 23 that a bill must have one subject. And as it's amended through either house, that the amendments cannot change the original purpose of the bill. The original purpose had to do with scholarships.
Mm-hmm. The Empowerment Scholarship
if you
Fund.
think, right? And as the bill was amended, the title and the purpose was changed to Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a pretty broad title there. That's like, hey, open the windows now. We can let everything in we want, and that's almost exactly what happened.
Mm.
I forgot the total of amendments that were added to it.
I think
but
it
in
started
any
off
case,
at 15 pages and ended up being 167 pages.
yeah, and sometimes the pages had included existing law, so some of those take up, like you could have one line changed, and it might take up 10 or 12 pages. So I wasn't too concerned about the number of pages, although that is concerning because if you're going to read the bill, if you picked up a book that's 160 something odd pages, it's going to take a little while to understand it and digest that or comprehend it. But if you're looking at legalese,
Mm-hmm.
and they're referencing different sections, you have to pick up and say, well, okay, that goes to this section. Now you got to look it up on the revised statutes and figure out what that means. And that could be hundreds of pages there too. And so there's a lot of gobbledygook in there that is difficult to understand. Some of it's not so much, but a lot of it is.
Mm-hmm.
And if I remember correctly, some of the things that were added to this, now remember the original purpose had to do with scholarships. They had teacher salaries. Now, do teachers need raises? Probably. But what does that have to do with scholarships? Well, unless you're saying they all have letters of the alphabet, not a whole lot.
Yeah.
And so that was just one of the many things that were different from the original purpose. So I had to, if I'm going to stand on my principles, vote no. And as I recall, I was the only senator who voted no on that original bill. I don't know if anybody voted on it after the fact or not, but in any case,
Yeah,
I didn't think.
I don't think a lot of senators voted no on it. Republican senators, anyways. So
that's my position, and that's what makes me difficult, Jennifer.
Yes, and I know. I guess I've got just a couple minutes here to finish up. Then I've got a student coming on. So I guess I would like to hear explain. I know you've said it many times, but about your one issue, per bill, and how do
Uh-huh.
you think that would, if we could have more senators on board and more legislators on board with that, how could that be a game changer, maybe?
Well, it would make things a lot simpler, because when you have a bill that only has one subject, oftentimes it's 10 pages or so. And I'm, guessing on that, but some of them are pretty short. Some of them are one pagers. We had a bill, I think it was Senate Bill or House Bill 2257. I could be fudging on the number, but it was a bill that was introduced by Representative Ben Keithley. And I can't even remember the topic now, so I won't even try to guess. But it had lots of amendments when it got to the Senate. And so I stood, and there's a video on it. I didn't publish this video, but the Senate actually put it on their website. I saw a constituent had posted it on Facebook, and I thought, I wonder where they got that. Anyway, it's about 14 minutes long, showing me talking about single subject bills and our constitutional oath and things of that sort. And after about 14 minutes of talking, the senator, Holly Rader, from Scott County, took the floor and said, asked for the bill to be sent back, or the substitute bill to be sent back. And what that did was it took everything off of it, went back to the original bill, and we proceeded to a vote.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? The single subject bill passed. In fact, I think we had, oh goodness, I want to say 12 of the 28 bills that were passed this year were single subject. And I think I had hand in 3 of those myself by either by filibustering just a little bit, didn't take long, calling for points of order. And there's a long story. It's kind of funny. I won't go into it now because we're short on time, I think. But the only time that I've ever had a point of order decided in my favor was against my friends who we align on more than not. It wouldn't have been against one of the other senators who doesn't like me and doesn't regard me very highly. Mm-hmm. And that's a telling tale there when you have something like that happen, when you are against a bill. If it would have been another senator, they always have decided against me. In this particular case, they ruled in my favor, and it was kind of hurtful in a way, because that caused hard feelings for a time. But in any case, my point about single subject is we can do it, and all we have to do is stand on the constitutional principle, and, as people say, get her done.
Yeah. And I think it would avoid or at least slow down some of the the horse trading that seems to go on, and the side negotiations and the omnibus bills that are way too long. So okay.
Yeah.
Well, David, did you have any closing comments, or?
No, I just appreciate you coming on and doing the interview with us. I really do appreciate that. That it's been something I've been wanting to have happen for a long time. So thank you.
Well, I'm grateful that you asked. Thanks for inviting me to do it.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Mike, and
you're welcome.
Best of luck to you in the race. Okay.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, David.
You're welcome. Bye, guys.